Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Frame Rate. I'm one of your hosts, Abe Epperson, and I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, whose name is...
Michael Swaim, who would like to be introduced by Abe Epperson, which was already stated.
Yeah, who would like to be introduced by... Oh, shit.
No, that's not right.
Yeah, this is not right. We're always off to bad starts.
Also,
we never can do a fucking intro correctly.
It's the show where we rate frames.
God, thank God, because I was like, we usually do something. Oh, yeah, it's that.
We
rate frames. So you clicked on the clicker thingy,
God,
and you know what this is. But I want to introduce a special guest, because he's always special in my heart. Daniel O'Brien, say hi to everybody.
Hello, and as long as we're naming who we'd like to be introduced by, I'd like to be introduced by Paul Reiser.
Paul?
Oh, yeah. Like a Whiplash type situation where he's introducing you, but he knows he's sending you to a fate that may be harsher than he intended.
Yeah, do that.
Sorry, I'm listening to Paul. He's in the other room. Wow, what an introduction.
Good,
really.
Good
I
on
wish
you
you
to
guys
jump
heard
on
it.
Paul Reiser's inarguably most famous role, Dad from Whiplash.
Yes.
Dad from Whiplash.
Impressive.
10 lines.
Quite impressive, Paul. Outshining
Emmy
us all.
award-winning Daniel O'Brien.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Who awards
Oh,
Emmys.
yeah.
Following
So
the frame
today,
rate. All right.
kittens, we're talking about a movie.
Yeah.
And it's called In the Loop. And it's from 2009. And it is directed by the very hilarious Armand Iannucci, who some people might know that name because he made in America the TV show Veep, along with others that we'll talk about after this. I wanted to quickly throw a shout out to our one of our patrons who brought us this title. His name is...
Throw shout out.
I'm going to shout it, and I'm going to throw it. Zach Schwartz, thank you so much for your patronage. He's the one who chose this.
He also gave us several other films to cover.
New York, and Four Lions. And
Four Lions, that's right.
Both good films.
When the patrons make their picks, do they include any information? Like, is there room for them to say, here's why, or anything like that?
It's what they want to do. He said specifically, I'm pretty agnostic about the guest, which is a first.
Although for Four Lions, he said Robert Evans, which is a solid pick because it's about extremism. Although I see overlap between Four Lions and In the Loop. Like, I'm getting a fix on Zach's taste.
Yeah.
Synecdoche, New York, I gotta say, I just truly thank you, Zach Schwartz, because I had seen that film and I love Charlie Kaufman, but I hadn't had a reason to rewatch it with a critical eye. And I think I agree with our guest on that episode. It's the best movie. It's the best movie. But we're not talking about that movie.
No, we're not.
But thank you to Zach, who made me rewatch it, and I'm very grateful.
Listen to that frame rate if you want that, because I didn't care for that movie.
That's true. That's true.
So I don't want to give it any more time. I do like this film, and I did want to give a little bit of background to people because it's kind of a weird one in terms of like how it was kind of created, which was In the Loop is kind of broadly a TV movie, even though it was released in theaters. And it's based off a TV show, the British BBC TV show called The Thick of It. And by loosely, I mean that there are some of the ensemble casts reprising their roles. You don't need to watch the TV show, though it does give you a flavor of the characters more. You get to live in that space. They do a pretty good job of, in the film, making sure you know everything you need to know about all these characters.
Oh, I agree. Because I'm aware of In the Thick of It as a comedy person, but I haven't yet sat down and watched it. And yet,
it's a good show.
It's very easy to follow. And if you've seen Veep, you haven't seen it, but I think you're familiar with the kind of thing we're talking about, like how a Sorkin is a Sorkin.
Right.
And Four Lions, was Four Lions also... I mean, they're both BBC, but was Four Lions a made-for-TV thing?
No, I think that was just a straight-up pitch to feature.
Okay, because it's interestingly structured. It feels like, it almost feels like a very long episode of TV. And I didn't actually know that it was an outgrowth of In the Thick of It. Question, is the Scottish dude who's the master of burns.
Yeah.
Peter Capaldi.
Is it? Yes.
Malcolm
Thank
Tucker.
you.
Yeah.
Is he literally like? Does he exist in the thick of it?
Yes.
verse?
So
he is.
there are
Yeah.
two characters from In the Thick of It who are also, or main characters from In the Thick of It who are also in this movie, and it's Pete Capaldi's Malcolm Tucker and Paul Higgins' Jamie McDonald, and a lot of the rest of the cast were in the show, but they're not playing the exact parts that they were playing, but they're playing similar parts. And that was things that I learned after reading about the movie, after watching it. But there was something, I did know that it was a spin-off of sorts from Thick of It, and the only time where that really seemed like there was something that, not that I was missing, but that I would get more enjoyment if I was a TV watcher, was the scene when Jamie and Malcolm Tucker were both double teaming with insults on Simon Forster, because that just like there's such a clear electricity there, and Jamie gets no real introduction. He just shows up, and they're just like two sides of the same coin batting around these idiots like cats with mice. And I'm like, this must be really special for devoted fans. It's still very fun for me, but I can recognize when I'm missing an added layer of coolness.
Yeah. Also, how he shits on Toby just constantly.
Yeah.
It's just, he's just a Rolodex of
I think
just insults.
Peter Capaldi shitting on Toby the first time, calling him Ron Weasley when he's so obviously Harry Potter. It's like
Clearly Harry
it's
Potter.
an added layer of disrespect that is just so fucking delicious that I never would have even thought of as a writer.
The moment that made me think that this was like written with me specifically in mind, or I felt seen or whatever, is when he says to him, they're trying to figure out who was the leak, and he goes, "Was it you, the baby from Eraserhead?" And I was like, what a pull. Jesus.
You're like the Nazi Julie Andrews. Yeah, he's got if you want to see one of the most ruthless takedowns from the thick of it, you can go on YouTube, just search Malcolm Tucker Star Wars.
I love that.
It is one of the greatest things, but he says it's like that fucking film you love, and he's like talking to Toby and like trying to explain Star Wars, and he doesn't understand Star Wars, so it's like a motif that he forgets pop culture, but he just assumes that Toby knows, and he's like, the one with the fucking bear in the trash can talking about. It's just like, he's just full of him.
Right.
It's
well,
so
and if
great.
you've seen Veep, you know, which this obviously is a precursor to, it's lauded for creative insults. And I gotta say, In the Loop is even a cut above Veep. I thought in that category, the creative insults were truly fucking. I'm like, I see why Iannucci has a reputation for this, for being funny for creative insults after seeing In the Loop.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll throughout this podcast we'll just throw them out. As we typically do when we have a guest. This one's a tough one, but Daniel, can I ask you to give like real cliff notes of like what this movie is about?
Sure. It's about a bunch of bumbling, cynical, hateful politicians across England and America sort of stumbling their way into the Iraq War, I want to say. And there are people on, I would say the majority of our quote-unquote heroes do not want to go to war, but you've got guys on the American side like David Rash, who definitely seems to want to, and Malcolm Tucker, who I don't know if he wants to go to war, but that's certainly the side that he's working for. I don't really get the sense that he
cares about anything.
Yeah. But
doing his job.
Right. But so there's this new minister who sort of kicks things off, and this is Tom Hollander's character, Simon Forster, who in a radio appearance says his stance on war is that it's unforeseeable, which gets a lot of people thinking, oh man, that's like, if you ask someone, is war coming, you hope that they say no. And when they say unforeseeable, that's some bet hedging that's going to, of course, raise some eyebrows. He later walks that statement back, but it's a little bit too late for that because there are these Americans like in David Rash who want to use that statement to get like an international allegiance for the pro-war effort. Meanwhile, there is what's the American woman? Her real name is Mimi. What is she, Karen?
Karen,
oh my God,
Karen Clark,
no
the U.S. assistant.
Karen, the U.S. Secretary of State. Thank you. She is very anti-war, and she flagged something in a report that was a part that was written by her staffer, Liza, and it mentions that there's not really good cause for war. We have one source, and it's a guy by the name of Iceman, and it's shaky at best, and there are a lot of reasons not to trust this source and a lot of reasons not to go to war. And she's bringing that up as like, this seems pretty cut and dry. We have no cause to go to war. So then it becomes...
this document, by the way, that's so crucial to the film's plot is called Pwip Pip.
Pwip Pip, yes.
Pwip Pip.
So then it just becomes a clash of all of these characters with their competing agendas of should we go to war, shouldn't we go to war, and then just doing like all of the things that make you lose faith in government, where it's just the major decisions happen by like this den of vipers double crossing each other and cheating and lying, and the ultimate conclusion is that we do go to war, and like the minister just says, well, that's that, like that, like that's his
literally, yeah.
his final thoughts on American and British intervention in a war that he inadvertently caused by being a bad radio guest and setting off a chain of events that was really difficult to follow. So I apologize that Abe said, give me the Cliff Notes plot, and now it's been 40 minutes.
It is.
I actually thought you did very, very well.
Thank
I
you.
thought it is I think part of it is how convoluted it is, kind of like
It's
any
super
typical
dense.
farce.
It feels like watching a season of ER or something compressed into one, or West Wing,
Yeah.
I guess is a better reference, compressed into one film-length thing. Yeah, like a season arc.
Yeah, and everything is done by innuendo, and like a lot of people, every time another person walks into a room, they come with like, well, this is the nuance I want to treat the situation with, so I'm not going to exactly say it outright. Other people are saying it outright. So you're unsure of exactly what is the truth, which is a great space to, as Yanucci does typically, as he does in Veep, place his catalog of, cowards and corrupt, spin doctors.
It's satire, baby.
Yeah.
It's good old-fashioned satire. I feel like he's almost... I don't want to insult Yanucci, but I feel like it's like good political cartoons, although political cartoons have become so hacked.
There's not been a single good political cartoon in 100 years.
Yeah, so maybe I retract that. But West Wing was decent, and it feels like, to me, it very much felt like West Wing if instead of going, America matters, democracy matters, wow, this is really something, he's really something, it was like rolling your eyes while saying those things. Oh yeah, America really matters, democracy really matters, but it's just as engaging as a West Wing or an ER, where I did find myself not even following necessarily the intricacies of, let's say, why it's called In the Loop, for example, or who was on what side why, but goddamn, it's just, it keeps moving so quickly, and it's such a joke machine, and it feels like it either overlaps with or was seminal to so many things I love, like The Office,
Yeah.
like Veep, and on, yeah.
Yeah, it's really, it is satire at its best in a way that me, as someone with no government experience whatsoever, I watch it and I'm like, yep, that's how it happens. He nailed it. That's how I believe it happens based on what he told me.
Yeah, it does have that verisimilitude, like but it's because we don't know,
Yeah.
But it does take like you assume that people are taking advantage of people, and kind of one of the late Act 3, if we even want to call it that, it's probably closer to like an Act 5, because they probably
That's
treated
what's
it like
interesting
TV.
is it's structured like
It's structured strangely.
it's so interesting. It feels like a TV. Yeah, it's just like this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens.
Yeah.
We're out of time. That's the end of the thing. And you're like, okay.
Abe, what was the thing you were going to bring up? Because I want to see if it's the same thing that I would bring up.
Well, I was gonna mention that like they take advantage of each other to the point that it is necessary for them to go back on things that they called for like literally 45 minutes ago, like moving the meeting up so that they can like release it before the PIP releases, and then they realize that they're just going to straight up be corrupt and alter PIP
Yeah.
like as a document and just cut things out,
Which is-
and make no
Therefore, you
no
may
one
as well
argued
have
against the
meeting
war
now.
yeah, because Tony Blair has said that we're going to war, so I guess now everything is we're going to war. So it kind of has that real, like, you can't help but, even though it was made in 2009, you can't help but like draw the parallels. And I'm just taking this from like what you were saying, Mike, just about how it's kind of feels like the salient satire, or Dan, how you were talking about how it, like, I don't know how it works, but I assume how it works. As we're dealing with like an impeachment, it's like sometimes it feels like that might be close to the truth, even though once again we don't know. But we just find that people just like toe the line, or they do terrible things in order to get things quote unquote done. And it's just like, Jesus, man.
Right.
And
It's
is
just
that
outright
the
corruption.
same insight you were thinking of, Dan?
No, mine was a different thing, but let's talk about that for a while, because I
okay.
will say that the deletion from that document of objections to going to war and changing the name of the source from Iceman to WC, that's the only thing that I thought was too far. Not too far for the movie. It's perfect escalation of satire for the movie. But that's the thing, like the same way when you get into season 5 of The Wire and they're inventing their own serial killer, that's where I'm like, okay, everything else about The Wire was real. This I don't think this would happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not a knock against the movie, certainly. Again, that's like, like everything else. Everything else that they did, I feel like, yeah, people who are in government like being in government. There are a lot of people on low levels who are genuinely there to help people, and a lot of people who got into it to help people. But a lot of the people at the top, they want to keep their jobs, and they want to be on committees, and they want to win at everything. And that's sort of what they're doing. There's no talk of anyone like helping their people.
Is this good what we're doing?
No, not at all. They're just just trying to beat each other and win and stay in government, in this strange government bubble where like hardly anyone is like out loud saying this is about going to war. It's just like, it's just talking about this meeting and this vote.
I'm really bad with the names of both the characters and actors on this, but worse than usual. But the befuddled secretary who says we must climb the mountain of conflict.
Simon.
Thank you, Simon. He's the only one, and of course gets completely compromised, which I think is such a great arc, because he basically is like, yes, it's my career. Oh, I fucked up. But remember, this is war. People are going to die. This is what I joined politics to not do or to oppose. A bunch of innocent people are going to die in a thing that I don't think is strictly necessary, et cetera, et cetera. And by the end, it's just do what we say.
Yeah.
Like, you're fucked. There's nothing you can do. Just do what we say. And he says, that's that. And I was wondering if you guys have had that moment in your life where...
Oh, when I pushed us into the war? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's talked about a lot when you realize your parents aren't flawless. But it took me to like age 25 to realize really in my bones that everyone's human and fallible, and like fallible a lot of the time, or like tired or hungry or doing a bad job or distracted. And it's like, even doctors, yeah, even policemen, oh yeah, like there's nothing. And it's so easy as a human to just justify a lot of actions by saying, well, when I reach XYZ level, I'm gonna do good stuff, so this is all justified. And I just think of, I think of this now. I will in the future. I think of movies like Burn After Reading. And I just think they key into something that's very true and very human. And I was wondering if you guys have had that adult moment where you're like, I barely know what I'm doing, and I'm considered an adult now? That's bad. This is crazy.
All the time. I mean, I remember going into, like maybe it's... I find that, like, sometimes life is just a series of, especially when you're dealing with, like, I don't know, creative types, because that's... like kind of how I see my life is dealing with one kind of creative interaction to another.
Right, and all creative types are perpetually children.
Yeah, and it's that, like, so I don't know when it happens. It just kind of constantly rehappens. But this kind of feeling of when I was like in film school, for example, and I recently got to watch the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and there's a sequence where it's like there's this auteur TV director, and it just reminded me so much, not of a specific person at film school, but just the idea that everyone is so like desperately trying to grab at something that they can identify as like a voice, that it's not that they're lying to themselves, but they're so putting on a show in order to like convince themselves really that they are the one to do this,
that
they
the
are
voice
the
is
perfect
authentic
child, you know, and that by doing so it always feels false, and it always makes me go like, but what is that, like, why are you doing that? But I understand, because it's hard to constantly try to straddle a line of like, you're not worth it and you're the best person for the job. How do you live in that paradox? And I think Mike said it well. Like, it's kind of sad, but it's very much something that's very human. Everyone's within it.
And yeah, Malcolm Tucker is an enigma to me, because that's the one character that I couldn't get inside of. He's just a machine, but there's never even the slightest hint of why he cares, or like why he's so passionate.
Well, he's the enforcer
continuing
for
in his
Blair.
path. I just don't get him. He just does what he does, and he won't stop.
I mean, that's just because this is we're having this conversation in smack dab in the middle of impeachment hearings right now.
Yeah.
And we had this conversation come up at work recently because there are all these Republican politicians who, as far as I know, a few years ago were just like normal, and now there are so many people who are like sucking up to President Trump and going so far as to like adopt Trump speak, like they're just like using the same language that he does, and I understand why they're doing it, because they know there are ramifications if they turn on the boss, like they might lose their seat. But when you see how far they're willing to go, it really makes me think, like, is it that good being a senator? Is it like really that fucking, are the perks so high that you'd rather do that than go to the private sector and make a lot of money? I don't understand.
Right.
And that's what you see on display on Veep and also in The Loop, and I imagine The Thick of It. These people who are just like, I'm here and this is my job, and this job gives me power, and I get to go to the nice parties, and I've decided that's the only thing that matters to me, that I'm going to compromise everything about myself. I'm going to throw out my morals because this is more important than anything else. And it's very confusing to me.
And like I think there's some sunk cost fallacy, like, well, I said I was going to do this, and I found out this detail and this detail and this detail, and they all suck, but I said I was going to do this. Like, what am I going to do? Not do what I said I was going to do? You know? And it's, as examinations of that go, this is one of the best. It's very sharp. The only thing that I can knock it for is that the structure is amorphous. And as an avid film viewer, that feels so weird to me. But it's very BBC. I see a lot of BBC stuff that makes me go, huh. That was a weird structure.
I would say,
like formally,
structurally, one of the things that threw me the most, or I guess narratively, it would be better to call it narratively, is you meet Toby right in the beginning, and he is brought in as the new guy. This is the new guy. He is starting. It's his first day, and he is also a shitty person. That's once I realized that he was like a scumbag pretty immediately. Like, he wasn't corrupted by this system over time. He started out pretty shitty.
No.
And I was like,
same. I was so conditioned by American television.
That's not the rules of New Guy. The rules of New Guy is I follow him and he's sweet and he's my way in.
He gets shot down and you're like, well, we all get shot down sometimes. Buck up, buddy. But this was like, there's a few scenes where he doesn't happen to say shitty shit to people. So I, as an American viewer of traditional American style film, you're like, oh, that's the guy. Yeah. All right, latching on. And then he's like, immediately joins in on bashing on everyone, being full on corrupt to get out of any kind of obligation.
He leaks to CNN about the war meetings. He cheats on his girlfriend immediately. God. And then throws anyone around him under the bus when they're trying to find the leak.
Yeah. It's because I think it's the idea is that, well, you get the feeling that at the beginning he is like taken aback by like the speech that's being used in that first scene. So it's not like you're not seeing someone who's from the get-go a shitty person. Maybe in their heart they're a shitty person, but they don't approach life like outwardly shitty. They're
not aggressive.
Mimicking.
That doesn't mean they're not shitty. Yeah.
They just start mimicking Malcolm Tucker because they go, oh, the culture's this.
That's my
Well,
boss.
I got to succeed, so I guess I got to like drop some F-bombs.
Everyone across the board. It's a show. It's a movie that only contains characters that would totally change themselves and sell their souls to succeed. So there's no one that's immune from like, oh, everyone's doing that. I guess I'll do that. Well, they're all being dicks. Yeah, I'm going to be a dick. That's, I guess, how it is.
Yeah, and they're petty when it doesn't go well for them. I love that one sequence with Tom Hollander, who plays Simon Foster. He's like... He's in the car and he's like, is it not the braver thing to not resign?
I love the follow-up to that when he's talking to Toby, because in that scene he's trying to logic his way into keeping his job despite being the inadvertent architect of the war. And so he's just doing like weighing pros and cons, like, isn't it brave if I stay and I don't resign? Isn't that braver than like resigning because of my morals? And Toby's like, maybe. And his other assistant, or his other aide is like, no, it's not. It's not braver. And then,
but not angrily.
Not angrily. She's like, no, scratch that. Like, take that off the list. And then later, Simon talking to Toby, and I'm like, yeah, I just want to talk about this resignation conversation again. And Toby's like, again? He's like, yeah, but just with you, not with her. Just, I want to have this conversation with someone who agrees with me. It's such a fun,
doing the right thing
thing
is so easy. Knowing you'll be right in retrospect, isn't it braver in a way to do the thing you know is wrong? And then, yeah, go ahead, Abe.
Well, I was just gonna say, to finish that beat, I love like the 1, 2, 3 of that. Like then cut to a little later when James Gandolfini, who plays a Lieutenant General George Miller, who's like a military assistant to the Secretary of Defense. And he is telling him, he's like, I'm not, so Simon says, I'm not going to resign. So that's been leaked as well. And like, he's like, no, you're gonna resign. Wait, so are you an idiot? Like, why are you smart for playing this game of not resigning or resigning? Like, what are you doing? Oh, you're an idiot. You're just an idiot. And then he calls him, then he says like, you're like worse than a suicide bomber, basically.
No, he says, I'm doing this against my will and it's gonna destroy everything like a suicide bomber. And he goes, no, not like a suicide bomber. A suicide bomber makes a decision.
Yeah. And then cut to a little like after that where he's in a room alone with his thoughts and someone walks in and is like, what's going on? He's like, I'm thinking about becoming a suicide bomber. Like, he is. And we know what that means. We know what that it means to him. He's like, I'm gutless. And he just unhinged me in a single line. Like, he just told me that I don't even make decisions. What am I? I'm just like a yes man. Because that's what he is.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, just before we move off it, the same scene where he says, isn't it braver to do the wrong thing? Right after that, the bit is a bit I wrote, so I have to like get it out. wars sometimes work. There are good wars. The war for independence worked
For
the Americans, which is obviously this is a British film, so that it wouldn't be a joke otherwise.
We got
but I love
nurses.
it.
Nurses are good.
Nurses are good, yeah. And when he cheats on his girlfriend, take all of your shit and your clothes and your eighth of dope and your flute and get the fuck out. It's extremely accessible. It's like I didn't realize how I was a little nervous to watch it, thinking that like I wouldn't be politically savvy enough to enjoy it, or that it would be very dry, and it's the opposite of that. And I don't know, I was scared having seen Veep. It's very Veep-like. It's very Office-like. What's this? Gabe is in it.
That's right.
And there's a Toby that everyone hates. Yeah, so you're halfway there.
There's also a little Parks and Rec in there when Minister Foster goes back to like have like a town hall with his constituents, I guess, where it's just sort of like the parade of freaks who have their strange issues, which gives us Steve Coogan as the guy who's like, hey, your wall is falling down and it's gonna crash into my yard and crush my mom's greenhouse. So you got to do something about that. And it's like a perfect, I think a very necessary subplot of just, also they're not paying attention to their constituents. Like this is a very, Steve Coogan's over the top, but he's not an insane person. And this is a very easy fix that like, if you as a politician, allegedly what you got into politics for was to care about your constituents. And this is his least favorite part of the job, and he doesn't do it, and it ultimately is what gets him fired. No,
that's what I found the most
getting us into
confusing.
the war.
So is that the situation? Is that his political opponents who want him removed because of the war situation, they use the fact that he never tended to that wall as like, well, we'll just blow that out of proportion.
Tucker's not a political opponent. Because he's not really aligned to anything. He knows that...
No, he's just like a fixer.
It will look bad for his party if the guy who inadvertently led them into war resigned in protest. Because that would look great for Simon. Simon could go out there and be like...
that's the one plot point I didn't
I'm resigning
get.
Because...
They're going to say, oh, it's because of the wall.
Like you don't get to resign out of protest. You get fired because you fucked up this wall, you idiot.
Okay. I bet man, Steve Coogan is just like such a fucking institution. Any important British comedy that was made while he's alive, he's like, let me get in there. I'll be a key figure in there.
He's doing the news story and if my mom's in there, she's gonna get crushed under that wall. How old's your mom? I'm 60. You're not fucking 60.
Also, Armand Iannucci, like one of his big breaks was that he worked on Alan Partridge. Like he was a writer for that early days.
I gotta say to Frame Rate fans, Alan Partridge Alpha Papa is on the film list, so we will cover it someday when someone picks it. I think that movie is so goddamn funny.
Hamlet 2 as well.
Hamlet 2's on the list too. Steve Coogan is an international treasure, without question. Daniel, you have or at least we chose you because I heard from Abe that he heard. Do you have a special love for Iannucci? And I'd love to give you some space to just elucidate what we love about him, why you love him.
I think there are much bigger Iannucci heads than I am out here. As I said, this is the first time I saw this movie.
That can't be what they call themselves.
Nooches.
The Nooches.
I loved Veep so much, and I like it for a lot of the same reasons that I like this. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier, and a lot of people say, is what a master he is at the art of profane insults, and how surely he won't have any more, and then more creative ones come. But separate from that, I think what in that conversation gets buried a little bit is his ability to craft unique bastards. Like Veep starts with a core cast of like 8 pieces of shit and Gary, and then they bring in someone new, and you think it's going to be like, Dietrich Bader, what's he going to be, just like another version of Gary Cole? No, he's a completely different piece of shit. And they did that for years and years, just like inventing new assholes somehow. And you'd think you'd get tired of it, and you don't.
Like,
and
you know who grinds my gears? This type of person. You're like, how have we not done them yet? That's true.
It's just a bottomless well of monsters that only he has access to, and it's so impressive to me.
Yeah. I think that's right.
So delightful to see Sam Richardson on there too. Join the cast of fucking monsters.
Yeah. I also love that Zach Woods is in this.
Yes, and the
playing an asshole.
I do think a hallmark of the comedy of our generation will be the Toby factor, and I'm referring to Toby from The Office now, Flenderson. But the character that everyone inexplicably hates, and it's interesting to see it get traded around and become a staple of sitcoms and then fade away. But I didn't realize the importance of Iannucci, I don't think, until I saw this film. Everything's phasal, but we're definitely in a phase, and maybe we're on the tail end of it now, but of insults are funny. Fucking just hating someone, that's funny. And comedy is very topical and it moves very quickly, but there's some kind of, if I still worked at Cracked, I'd write an article about all the Tobys and what does that mean? Why are we doing that?
Yeah. There's also this will hopefully come as a surprise to anyone who's ever met me or followed me, is that I would love to live in a world where you could be that mean to each other, just because.
Really?
Right.
That is surprising.
I remember this about you.
It's not about being mean. I don't want to hurt anyone. The reason that I like this world, and also a lot of Sorkin's world, is that the rules of that universe is that no one is friendships are never broken. Toby will say something mean to fucking Rob Lowe's character, whatever stupid name, Sam.
Withering.
Yeah.
Just mean to the extremest
something
degree.
Very personal and mean, and they just shrug it off and walk away. The part of me that is a writer and B, a lover of words, and C, someone who tries to lover of words, fuck me. C, someone who tries to think quick on his feet. It was it would be cool if I could just walk around and zing my friends, and they could zing me
just
in a very
banter
very lethal way, but it doesn't matter and no one's hurt.
Yeah, I want that carte blanche too, just because it feels like it's a canvas, but at the same time, it's not real, but it also could be real, and that is not worth it, so you don't do it.
No, it would get real fast.
Yeah, it could get real, and then it's a real big problem because, if you go too far, now you're that guy, and you're fuck, I shouldn't have said that, and they just have repercussions, so you just can't touch it. But you want someone to come at you with it, too.
Yeah, no, I want it to be a give and take.
Especially in this...
Oh,
yeah, exactly. I want it to be... I want it to be like this movie.
I'm a Sensi. I wouldn't want someone to come at me in this universe we exist in where I have feelings and I think my social, propinquity matters. But if I agree with Daniel that if I was in a universe where it was an accepted rule of society, that it's look, we're all political operatives, everyone calls everyone a cunt, and that's just the way it is, then I would delight in being very clever. But but I don't live in that world. No. Someone calls me something terrible and I go, oh man.
And you clutch your pearls because
the closest I came to it.
Because you go, fuck you, man. Fuck you. I'm gonna make you feel this with my sadness.
General Flintstone, which is the best name for James Gandolfini I've ever heard.
Oh my god, that tete-a-tete that they have is straight up that's the most ruthless section of the whole thing, right?
I'm sorry to derail the meeting, but you appear to be bleeding from the teeth. It's also very, very funny. If you haven't seen it and we haven't made that clear yet.
What do you think of me? Do you think I'm some kind of monster as she's bleeding from her tissues? Stuffed in her mouth?
Please don't say things that imply I'm a monster.
Like a fucking mouth mummy.
It's also, I think there's, everyone in it is very good, but there's a couple of things to watch out for. If you, like me, have never seen Peter Capaldi in anything except YouTube clips that have been recommended to you, absolutely watch this fucking movie. He's just a force. He's just this bug-eyed monster who's always set at 11, and he's just so incredibly watchable. And the other actor that really jumped out to me was Tom Hollander, who played Simon, who I've always liked. I've seen him in a bunch of things. He was very funny in About Time, and he was like perfectly cast as like sniveling British bad guy in Pirates of the Caribbean, and he does it so well that you think, yeah, that's who you are. And he does a similar turn as a high-ranking Nazi in Valkyrie, and it's like, yeah, you're like a little guy with a mean face, and you were born to play these like the rebels. They're here. Those roles. Yeah, that's what you were designed for.
Right.
But
I'd fight you.
But he's
sure.
so fucking funny and stupid in this. It's really great, and I don't know why he's not in more comedies.
He's also one of the best. He's in the best scene of John Adams, the miniseries, because he plays King George.
That.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he just stares.
King George III, also a sniveling, pipsqueak, British asshole. Yeah, interesting.
He is a powerful actor, and like his range is like he's sleepy.
Yeah. That's what I'm like. I feel like we've been sleeping on him. That now that I saw this, I've been sleeping on him. Now that I saw this movie that came out in 2009, I was like, hey, this guy's funny. You should put him in more movies.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure commenters will answer if none of us can. What's his deal?
He's Doctor Who now.
He's Doctor Who now.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I just lost all my nerd cred for not knowing that, but I'm happy to know that. Because he also was just like, I understand that it's a vehicle for him, but at the same time, I'm like, and he crushed it.
Yeah.
Good job, Capaldi. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to exhaust. I have a question, but first I'm going to exhaust because we incidentally went through all my favorite lines except for two. So I'm going to exhaust my line shout-outs, and then I have an open-ended question. So the guy who plays Debussy constantly, I think it's not Capaldi. It's the guy who kicks the fax machine
Jamie.
to death. He yells, how about for a start, turn the fucking music off. It's just fucking vowels.
That was my. It's just fucking.
That's the
How has
finest.
nobody said that before?
It's also so British. The humor in this is so British.
Foreign vowels.
The idea of heightening burning someone to like a Dorothy Parker-esque, like a crystalline art form, to describe opera as just fucking vowels.
I'm so mad at you. Vowels. I'm gonna burn opera.
Yeah, and then I also love. We already discussed the fact that the wishy-washy secretary eventually gets pushed into just going along with the war against his explicit beliefs and all the reasons he got into this. And I just like one of his protests when they go, James Gandolfini goes like, no, you're not. You're going to fucking quit. You're going to get fired because of fucking this. He goes, but I'm me. You're not me. I decide about all the main things
all the main things
to do with me.
The main things.
And they're like, no, you fucking don't. And the height of satirical existentialism in that is just truly something beautiful to me. To play the chessboard in the way where your characters can get to a point where they're saying things like, don't I decide the main things about me, though? And they go, no, you don't. And you're like, oh, this is some Kafka shit. Yeah.
This whole time, I thought I was the main guy. Turns out, no.
Yeah.
Bad.
It's for something so funny, it has a lot in common with 1984 and Animal Farm and stuff. It's also like truly disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, they're all monsters, but like so the comedy comes from that. One of my favorite back and forths between Gandolfini and Karen Clark, the character, where they're talking about Gore Vidal.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You know, the Dino one? I'm the Gore Vidal of the Pentagon. I'm a voracious reader. And she's like, Gore's gay.
No, he's not.
No, he's not. I beg to differ, but he's gay? Because I've been seeing that Gore Vidal line. He is gay. guess I better stop saying that then. Like I don't know what that means. Like, does that mean that it's a win? It doesn't mean anything. The same thing kind of happens later when him and Malcolm are talking about, like, and if you call me English one more time, because he's Scottish. And then he walks away, like, he's like, I'll fucking kill you. And then he walks away. And then the camera just moves back to James Gandolfini, who's just confused because he doesn't know the difference between, but you're English, right? No, he's Scottish. The word you're thinking of is British. And it's just like one of those things where it's just like, so they're all fools on different levels. They're all assholes on different levels. They kind of learn things, but they're still never going to make it out.
And no one can know everything. And yet they all share in common that they're immediately willing to write someone off because they're like, you don't know that thing that I know. Fuck you.
Exactly. Exactly. Which is just super myopic of a worldview, but here we are.
Did you guys find that Hollywood was like more stereotypically Hollywood than you expected it to be when you got into the industry? Like, Abe, do you remember that guy we met at Comic-Con who bragged about being at the Sky Bar and was clearly on cocaine and shit?
Yeah, I do, kind of. But they all kind of blur together, the, party producers.
I guess I just feel like life is turning out to present more stock characters to me than I thought actually existed in real life. I assumed it was exaggerated.
I think cliches are exaggerated, but there's truth behind it. I mean, without naming names, there's people that we've met that it's just like, I don't understand why you would say that. Like, why? Why'd you Alex Schmidt? Why do you make that about you in a moment that wasn't about you or something like that? And then you realize, oh, it's because there's a grand insecurity there, is how I internalize it. But like, that doesn't make me right. There could be a plethora of reasons that I don't know that make them that way. But yeah, it seems to be a kind of a facade.
I just find I keep encountering the loop where I'm like, why do they do that? Oh, because of an insecurity. Oh, that old thing where people always say that performers have an insecurity and that's why they crave attention. I always thought that was just a thing people said. Oh, it's true. Or like,
sure,
not in every case, certainly. But it really makes me curious whether political insiders and career people who work in like the mechanics and the guts of politics think In the Loop and Veep is super accurate. In the way that when Scrubs was running, there were little human interest articles all over the net about like, did you know nurses and doctors actually say Scrubs is the most realistic show? And I'm like, that's terrible. I don't want to know that. But I suspect that it's true. And I feel like there's something about Iannucci that even if it's exaggerated, feels so much more. I watch West Wing and I'm like, I hope it is like that. And then I watch In the Loop and I'm like, I bet it is like that.
Yeah, I mean, I probably lean towards thinking it's more like In the Loop and Veep than West Wing because Aaron Sorkin is, an idiot. But so am I, so I shouldn't be saying that. But like, it's how I feel, so I'm saying it.
That's good.
I do feel like we're never gonna really know unless we're in it. Like, there's a lot of every time Veep came out with a new season, there were articles allegedly from Washington insiders that were like, "Yeah, this is what it's really like," and Julie Louis-Dreyfus and Mondo Iannucci and everybody else associated with the show has their stories about like, yeah, I was at the White House and I talked to this guy and he was like, you're the only ones who've gotten it right. Which, like, if you're fucking working in Washington and you see one of the funniest shows on television, of course you're gonna say, yeah, that's what it's like. We're all just that funny. Mm-hmm. We're all just walking around like fucking zinging each other and
even if it makes you all seem like pieces of shit with no insides. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Well, I mean, what we all agree that it's just that's the power of narrative, the power of telling a good story makes people want to.
Well, that's the other thing is it makes you realize how fucking malleable you are. Because I keep in the scenes where Capaldi, sorry, where Malcolm Tucker has something important to do, I find myself rooting for him so hard. Like I want him to achieve his objective. And then I think for a second and I'm like, I am against his objective. Why do I want him to win? Just because he's so forceful. Like I just want a strong person to come tell me I'm a basic bitch and tell me what to do.
All right, let's patch in Soren.
There we go. Yeah.
He's our go-to for that. Yeah. Oh no, Paul Reiser wants to talk again.
Hey, he's very supportive.
Paul Reiser, that guy from Bye Bye Love.
Mm-hmm. And your introduction.
No, I know.
I don't know Bye Bye Love.
See,
Shall we watch that next?
So,
Is that good?
Probably not. Cody and I love it, but see, what I did was a very funny callback. So when I mentioned Paul Reiser and you went straight for Whiplash, I commented that it was not his most iconic performance. And then, so what I did by bringing up Bye Bye Love, that three-hander of, get ready for it, Paul Reiser, Matthew Modine, and Randy Quaid.
Wow, I have not heard of it, and I'm a big Quaid head.
Still?
Look at you guys on a different level. Here I am making jokes about an in-joke of a thing that is within our podcast. So the only thing that people who are listening to this format would understand. And then calling back to a thing that you said, which is that you
I'm a good enough comedian to know that now is the perfect time to say an in-the-loop-esque exquisite cutting remark at you.
Yeah.
But not a good enough comedian to come up with one.
Yeah.
What if I fucking really took the piss out of you right now? How would that feel? Imagine it.
I love how unhinged this is getting. Let's deconstruct
well, you know. Many thanks to Zach Schwartz. I do think he has good taste in films to make us watch, but a little of it is an excuse to talk to our dear friends who we don't get to talk to enough. So we'll take 8 minutes here and there throughout the hour.
Did you guys see Death to Stalin yet?
To just go off the rails.
Did y'all see Death to Stalin yet? That's Armando's movie from 2017, I want to say.
No.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. It was fairly recently. I have not
Steve
seen
Buscemi?
it, and I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
Really? Okay,
Is
I'm
it
interested.
on any... I can't find it on like Amazon or anything, and I don't want to buy physical media because I'm a baby.
Yeah, that's fair. It was very enjoyable. I liked it. Patty Considine, who I like a whole lot. Jason Isaacs, Jeffrey Tambor. Oh, no, he's canceled. Never mind.
Yeah. Okay. I can't. It's hard. All right. But okay, we have a meeting every day at IGN in the mornings where we talk about like video game news. We got to pick a video game news topic to go for the daily news show. They have daily news shows on both channels, right? And an entertainment news topic. By the way, FYI, Clint Gage of Team Tiger Awesome, higher up in their entertainment side. So I walked into that job and
fantastic.
Clint was there.
He's such a champ.
Yeah. He's a wonderful person to beat by. But they today I found out because of this that, and Daniel, you're on top of Broadway news. They're going ahead with the big Broadway Michael Jackson musical based on Michael Jackson music. I'm surprised. Congratulations to Ephraim, who landed a legendary Broadway performer who landed the role. I don't know. I'm taking us completely off the rails. I'm sorry. But why? What? I didn't know we were gonna. All right, I'm done.
The complexities of cancel culture is what you're alluding to.
I sound regressive, and I'm not trying to. I believe in canceling because I do believe that we've been operating at a level where we're not sensitive enough to people being oppressed. But there is a sheer level of complexity that I'm not understanding.
Yeah, I don't completely know all the rules. No, absolutely not.
Right?
And this is one where someone could come at me with an argument that is like, look, this musical being put on gets X amount of people jobs and X amount of people visibility, and we get to tell the story the way that we want to tell it, and it's going to be a story full of people of color, and how could you say that's a bad thing? And I was like, yeah, you're right. And then someone else could say, how could you?
Yeah.
How are we still glorifying Michael Jackson at this point? And I'd be like, yeah, you're right too. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone should be like, it's not your place
Yeah.
to say, cis white male. And you're like, silent.
Yeah.
Respectful silence. Grateful. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting time. I love it. It's weird to me that there's so much humor based on cruelty, and most of it rubs me the wrong way because I don't relish cruelty. And then there's these weird ones that slip through the radar and somehow have a feeling of, I know that they don't mean it in a cruel way, though. And my two examples, it used to be, I just had one example where I'm like, I don't know why. I usually don't like comedy about terrible people. Always Sunny in Philadelphia has no one defensible in it. It's just a pile of shit monsters. And I really like it. I think it's really funny and endearing. And I never really find it cringy, and I don't fully it's magical to me that it never offends me. Whereas even South Park, I'm like, all right, guys, that's a little far sometimes. And Family Guy, yes. But like this now too is on my list of, how can this thing that's so hateful, full of irredeemable people, be so endearing to me? I think In the Loop is like cute.
Yeah, I think
I
because
like it in that way, in the way you like something cute.
Clear fairly early on that no one's really going to get destroyed by this, and no one is good, which might sound like a depressing way into a show, but it's very effective. It's a very effective turn for me that we begin with Malcolm Tucker berating Simon. And then as soon as Malcolm Tucker is gone and Simon is now the person with the highest status, now he's an asshole. So it's like, okay, good. It's just a chain of assholes. No one's good. No one's going to get really destroyed by this. I don't need to feel bad for anyone. Hooray. I feel bad for so many things in my life, from the people that I see on the street to people that I've known in my life to whether or not I'm purchasing eggs in the most ethical way. This is an hour and 45 minutes where I don't have to feel bad about anything, and it's so good.
And they're not trying to convince you everyone's good, which is really hard to buy. They're just like, all right, let's say it's the other way. These people are through this screen. You don't have to feel their hatred coming at you. You can just judge them. It's fine. Yeah. It's a good movie. I recommend it. I gotta say, I'm very, very grateful for the taste of our fan base on average. I really thought Flick the Pick would devolve into forcing us to watch a bunch of bullshit, and so far I have not felt that way at all. So thanks again to Zach Schwartz. I will say, final thoughts, final notes before we wrap up.
The sight gag of Karen bleeding from her teeth was very funny, and David Rash's line getting into that and his line read was so good. Just a weird thing that never came up again. They had like a setup beat where she was like, I think my teeth hurt. And then in a meeting, her teeth started bleeding. And then in another meeting, David Rash says, don't start bleeding again. And she didn't. And that was it. And we just never figured out what was going on there.
There's some magic to the joke writing in this, because we've spent a lot of time in comedy writers' rooms, and it's hard for me to reverse engineer whoever thought of that. It's just out of left field, man. How'd you think of that? Yeah.
That feels to me like something, like I'm gonna pull up my notes right now, like my scratch pad of things that I've just written down, and they have no home, and I'm vamping while I find it. Oh, this is very good, because Abe will like it. It's a line that doesn't have a home yet. It's just a tagline, milk, it's what's for bones. And that's it. And so I feel like at some point a writer wrote down, I don't mean to be rude, but your teeth are bleeding, or whatever the line was. And we're just like, I don't know where this
and they were
I don't know where this goes yet, but I'm going to hold on to it and then one day put it somewhere.
Yeah, I could see that. I've seen that happen as a microcosm, in our rooms before.
it's a part of that when you
Cody's
think of the
good at
line. It's
that.
also a part of. We were talking about this recently, like Dave, Tom, and I. When you like cast someone of note of popularity, and you're like, just say a line. Just say this line. I just want Rivers Cuomo to say
Because
this.
it's crazy that Tom Hanks is going to say this stupid shit.
But it's an extension of that because that's got peppered in the fact that we all know who like that actor or that personality is. There are times that I just think of something and it usually just finds its way in a tweet or something like that where it's just like, that's a dumb phrase. Like, why is this a thought? Why can you still know what I mean when the words themselves are so far removed from anything that makes semblance of sense, you know?
And then like find some way, like, I don't think I'm going to make a whole TV show based off of milk. It's what's for bones. But, you know, some of these other lines I'm looking at in my scratch pad right now and I'm like, yeah, why don't I just start with that and then see where it goes?
That's what I was going to say is imagine being like Eric Wareheim or Eric Andre and having the balls to go with that and build your comedy from there. It's interesting. And like Kyle Mooney strikes me as that as well. And like Cody has that kind of bravery too. It's just interesting. Yeah. To be like, non sequitur comedy. There's something, it's like the J.J. Abrams mystery box for comedy writers. Cause your traditional comedy writer is enthralled by and knowledgeable in formulae and like can talk at length about all these little tricks and rules of comedy, and there's something mystical to a veteran comedy writer about a comedian who goes, I don't know, weird shit comes into my brain and I just do it, like a Tracy Morgan where you're like, God damn, man, I never would have thought of that. That doesn't follow.
It's funny you mentioned Tracy Morgan because I was just rewatching random episodes of 30 Rock recently, and one of the ones that got me is that they have that character who's just a repository for that kind of stuff, which is Moonvest.
Les Moonvest.
Well, not Les Moonvest, but yeah, at one point that's an arc. But they just cut to him because they reference him and they need you to remember who he is. Because they just do random cutaways to him. And it's one where someone, I think it's Kenneth, walks up to Moonvest and says something, and then he just goes, "Give me your fingernails." Which is just like, someone thought of that. Someone thought a man yelling at Kenneth, "Give me your fingernails." And it just tickled me to such a level. It's non sequitur.
Bones are funnier than they should be as a group.
I love bone jokes. You know this about.
Yeah. Oh, the Genius Camp Pixar sketch grew out of, I think, Noah Byrne saying, "We talk to your bones, they want out." It's just Bones is in so many funny lines. Yeah, Bones are very funny. I am imagining myself like at age 92 talking to great grandchildren who have VR shunts in their spines, and I'm like, Bones were very funny.
Yeah, we say stuff like consult the bones.
Yeah.
Like when we look for wisdom. Real weird.
Yeah.
Real weird.
All right. Okay, if I wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we got the good bone arc.
Daniel, open it up. I'll wrap it up. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
I know Daniel's style of late, so I'm going to say, Daniel, please plug Soren's new baby.
Not due yet, but I will shout out Soren because friend of the pod, friend of the network, Soren Bowie, has a podcast called Quick Question with Soren and Daniel, and I'm all but court ordered to promote by our business guy.
What did you think I meant by Soren's baby? I meant the show. Obviously the show.
Check it out anywhere you listen to podcasts. We have advertisers now, so they're paying attention to people who listen to it. So you just gotta.
And is there bacon on that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You sprinkle a little bacon, little bacon bits
Yeah.
at random intervals. It's very fun. I would say the best part of that podcast, Soren's podcast, is the amount of times Bacon is given an opportunity to say anything and just blows it.
Oh, anything at all. Yeah, anything engaging. We love you, Bacon. Yeah, it's a great show, man. I'm bad at phone, as you know, but it makes me feel like I still hear about what's going on.
Thanks.
As does this. So this is very
Oh,
pleasant.
also, no, don't listen to Quick Question. Ignore that. Fuck all that. Fuck that.
Yeah. We'll
watch
cut it.
watch the Clue sketch that you guys did, because I've watched it like 4
Hell
fucking
yeah,
times
dude.
now since you put it out. And then I watched Clue again last night because I was like, well, it'd be weird if I watched the sketch again, so let me just watch Clue. And then I watched Clue, and then I watched the sketch again. It's just very good.
Oh, thank you,
Just
sir. Right. I think
Thanks,
it's the
man.
best Small Beans thing thus far, personally.
Yeah, we worked hard on it.
Yeah. I hadn't seen the Clue movie, and this is so stupid, but I decided not to because I didn't want it to taint my writing of the script. And now that we've shot it, I realized I should fucking watch Clue.
Have you never watched
It's a
Clue
good
before in your
movie,
entire
and
life?
Never seen
Okay.
Clue in any form.
That's
Even
why I
though
directed it, though.
Yeah,
because
even though
I
it was on
watched Clue.
Comedy Central constantly when I was the right age, I always changed the channel.
Okay, I'm booking myself now for a future episode for when you watch Clue, because I fucking love Clue. It's a divisive movie.
Ooh,
A
that's
lot
a
of
good
people
one.
hate Clue. And
Yeah.
like there's not a lot of middle ground. It's people who love Clue and people who hate Clue. And I'm on the love side, and I can't believe you've never seen it before, and I want you to watch it, and I want to
Interesting.
talk
I
about it.
can't believe that either. Yeah.
I actually discounted it because it was on Comedy Central so often. You know what I mean? Like, I assumed it couldn't be that good of a film.
no.
Because it ran. Do you guys remember that it ran on Comedy
Yeah, I mean,
Central all the
it ran
fucking
on
time?
Comedy
Yeah.
Central around the same time that like Wet Hot American Summer was running around Comedy Central all the time. I was just like,
I stand
yeah,
corrected.
Comedy
Yeah.
Central had some good shit.
All right. Okay, so next time,
Save
Clue.
it for the podcast.
Yeah, save it for next
Got it.
time. One day we won't be allowed to make fun of the New Jersey accent, and there just won't be
yeah.
anything for me to do. It's like fat people, then
Yeah.
that, and we're out.
We talk about this. Well, I'm not gonna. Never mind.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
not-
Is that a real never mind?
It sure
All right,
is.
never mind.
Guys, I think we knocked it out of the park.
I think we killed it. It was hella fun, and I hope Zach is pleased with his purchase.
Thank you all for listening to these random diatribes. And I guess, yeah, bye.
Bye bye. This has been a Small Beans endeavor. We're a bunch of pals who make podcasts, sketches, music, web series, and movies. The Beans always have new ideas percolating, so make sure to check us out at patreon.com/smallbeans. That's patreon.com/smallbeans, where you can browse all of our current and past content, see what we've got planned in the future, and learn how your support can help the small beans grow into huge, giant monster beans. If you enjoyed this content module, please like, rate, subscribe, or tell a friend about us. We love you.